we have approximately less than an hour to solve the mystery of our existence. Let me go right for it, okay? So if you read deep history, if you're a student of deep history, then you'll find something very interesting. And that is, up until 40,000 years ago, there were 8 different species of humans. We are part of the human family. Just like lions and tigers and panthers and cheetahs, and your house cat is one family with different species. A species mates only with its own kind, even though it comes from a bigger family. So we are called Homo sapiens. It's a name we gave to ourselves. It means the wise ones. So we were extremely humble giving us this name. But we gave names to other species too, other human species. Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Neanderthals, Floroensis, Denisovians, on and on. And they all look like us, like we did. And they all had a rudimentary language, which most animals do. They communicate with each other within the species. And the language is just about survival, which means sex, food, and danger, period. That's how species survive. And that's how humans survive too, as before the hunter-gatherer, even prior to the agricultural age and so on. So then something very interesting happened. One species, us, we created a language for telling stories. In all my research, I couldn't find any other species that does this. We are the only storytellers on our planet. And the first stories were gossip, which is still the most popular story, right? Any newspaper, any social media, it's all about gossip. Fake news, real news, doesn't matter, it's all gossip. But then other stories started to emerge from Homo sapiens. Stories like race, religion, mythology, cultural mythology, which is religion, all in the Bronze Age, and then philosophy, which literally means the love of life, then theology, which is the study of religious doctrine and experience, and then about 400 years ago, science. So the most important thing to know is that science is also a story, and it's told by human beings, and it's probably the most adventurous story that Homo sapiens has ever embarked on. Because of science, I'm here, I took a jet plane, I'm using a microphone, we all use social media, we take it all for granted. It's only 400 years old, and actually the information age is only since the 1990s. There was no internet before that. And so all this has happened very recently, and of course we think science is the most reliable story. So I hope to give you the scientific story, but also I hope to convince you that it's not true. So let's go there. According to current science, your present existence in this form that you are there began at the moment of your conception. So at the moment of conception, one starts out with a single cell, one cell, a fertilized egg, and that cell divides 50 times, approximately, ends up as the 100 trillion cells that make a human baby. 1 becomes 2, becomes 4. This process is called morphogenesis and differentiation, how the one becomes the many. Morpho means form, morphogenesis to give rise to form. So that one cell, call it a stem cell, a pluripotential cell, it becomes everything that you are right now. fingernails, hair follicles, genitalia, brain, heart, eyes, etc. It's an extremely fascinating process because during that 9 months of embryogenesis, the human baby in its development in the womb replicates all of biological evolution. And at the moment of conception, you acquire 25,000 genes. A gene is a stretch of DNA that codes for a protein. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and there are 4 chemicals that make up the entire alphabet of life. And they're usually abbreviated as 4 letters of the alphabet, A, T, C, G. So right now I'm speaking to you in English, which uses 26 letters. Most languages use over 20 letters. But life uses only 4 letters. Doesn't matter if it's the life of a bacterium, a microbe, a plant, an animal, a lizard, you, me. So those 4 letters make words, and the words, metaphorically speaking, are called genes. Gene is like the word which becomes this flesh, literally, or metaphorically. Everything is a metaphor. And people ask, where did the atoms come from that make up the alphabet? You know, A, T, C, and G are made of atoms. And 4 atoms dominate your biology. 96% of the atoms in your body are just 4: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. The remaining 4% are other elements from the periodic table. Iron in your hemoglobin, and calcium in your bones, and all of that. So where did the atoms come from? And our current science says that the atoms were manufactured in the crucible of burning stars, like they're called supernova. So when a giant star exhausts its thermonuclear energy and burns itself up into the heat death of absolute zero, what we call a singularity, a black hole, in that process, hydrogen and helium fuse to make the elements in your body. And today we are told that 50% of the atoms in your body don't even come from the Milky Way galaxy. They come from other galaxies through a process called galactic wind, which means gravitational forces suck out matter from other galaxies into the Milky Way galaxy. According to current science, there are 2 trillion galaxies. And by the way, you don't have to believe anything I say. You can Google this information. Everything is easily available now. 2 trillion galaxies. 700 sextillion stars. I don't even know how to write that, except it's 700 followed by so many zeros that if you actually had to write it, it would take you a lifetime or more. 700 sextillion stars and uncountable trillions of planets. In fact, today cosmologists believe that there could be 60 billion habitable planets in our own Milky Way galaxy. And how do they even come with this conclusion? They have satellites and telescopes in space, like the Hubble telescope, the James Watson telescope, and lots more. And they look for what is called a biosphere. A biosphere means an atmosphere that's conducive to life. So a planet has to be within a certain range of its sun in order to harbor life. If it's too close, too hot, too far, too cold, this zone is called the Goldilocks zone. Planet Earth happens to be in the Goldilocks zone. But if we look at all this current cosmology, then our planet is not even a speck of dust, not even a speck of cosmic dust. And now, of course, it's in the junkyard of infinity because we've even polluted space. If you count all the number of grains on of sand on planet Earth, it comes to about 400 billion multiplied by some huge number. So our planet would be one of those 400 billion grains of sand in a universe with 2 trillion galaxies and 700 sextillion stars, and a species called Homo sapiens, which is trying to figure out what happened.